Hi everyone, my name's Arthur Ferridge, your host for this evening. I'd like to welcome those present and watching online to your third evening of Candidate Spotlight. Here we have our candidates for Athletic Union Officer, and I'm going to let them both introduce themselves. So Alex, if you'd like to.
Hi everyone, my name's Alex Duggan. I'm running for AU Officer. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm President of Women's Rugby.
Hi, I'm Jack. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a third-year biology student, and I'm the captain and founder of wheelchair basketball here at Newcastle Uni.
Fantastic, so we'll get right into it. First question is just going to be, how has sporting impacted your life at uni? Alex, if you'd like to start.
Sport has been a huge part. Sport has been a huge part of my whole life at university. I actually joined uni in 2020 during the COVID years, and I had to join rugby union online, which was a little strange. But even though it basically helped me get through COVID and lockdown, and I generally met some of my bestest friends at the club. It's essentially shaped my uni experience. Like, as much as I love my degree, I study zoology. Being part of the sporting community has massively helped me get through the whole thing. So yeah.
Great, thank you. And Jack?
I came to uni knowing I wanted to set up a wheelchair basketball team, but in the meantime, I didn't know quite what to do. In first year, I didn't have many friends. I was on my own. But every Wednesday, I knew that I could count on the athletics social, going every single week for a night out. I had friends in athletics. Didn't really have friends elsewhere. They provided me happiness and joy, along with a sport that I loved. I then founded the wheelchair basketball team in year 2, and that shaped not only my life, but so many others, and continues to in the future as we go on. Sporting's massive at university, and there's a sport for everyone, everywhere, and that's why I'm so passionate about this role. It's changed my life for the better, and I'm sure I can help continue to make it change others.
That's great, thank you. So question 2, what would you implement to encourage active participation in minority sports? Jack, if you'd like to.
I think my manifesto one of the points of my manifesto really speaks to this. It's the production of recruitment videos. A lot of uncertainty occurs when you join a new club. And you get clubs that are large in numbers, players that have been playing all their life, they know what to expect. You look at football, you know exactly what you play in a sport. Then you look at these small sports, these ones like, for example, wheelchair basketball or equestrian or korfball, who don't really pull in the numbers that bigger clubs do. You don't know what to expect. The recruitment videos that I propose will allow clubs to say the commitments they expect from their players, but then also what their players can expect from them. It allows them to show how many times do they train? Do they need to go to S&C every day? Do they need to go to a match once a week? The uncertainty that you get just causes unnecessary fear. And I think the recruitment videos will just reduce that and increase the participation, particularly in minority sports, but also aid the larger clubs as well.
Great, thank you. And Alex?
One of the main things I've been speaking about on my manifesto points has been about shaping the sporting culture at Newcastle. And I think we can all do more to create a little bit more of a positive environment. One thing I've been thinking about is introducing monthly flagship events. That could be for all sports, so the big and the small ones. I know basketball did it the other week, and when we played an away match with Rugby Union at Birmingham a couple of weeks ago, they made it such a big deal. They had music speakers at the side, they had a host, they had a pop-up bar, and they had food trucks, and they had cheerleaders coming at halftime. They made it such a big event for everyone, and generally so many spectators came, and it was absolutely fabulous. I think if we try to promote that, I think doing it weekly would be quite hard to achieve, but at least monthly would be great to get more participation and more visibility, especially for the clubs that don't already have that in place.
Great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add, Jack?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Great, so we can move on. Question 3, how did you develop your manifesto, and who have you consulted to help form it? Alex?
I developed my manifesto firstly alongside speaking to a lot of the members within my club and within my committee. I then spoke to quite a few other sports clubs, so I live with my house here in Jesmond is full of, generally everyone plays a different sport, so I was chatting to them, some of my course mates as well, and then I reached out to some other smaller clubs that I didn't know many of the members of, just using Instagram and heading to some of their training sessions to get a little feel of their views and opinions on stuff within the AU. I'm also part of the AU Executive Committee already, so I've been speaking to some of the representatives on that committee and getting their views on certain issues and where they feel like there's gaps within the AU and the projects that we got set in place already. I also put out some polls and I got some anonymous views from that side because I know some people find it hard to come forward and don't want to name and shame. So getting a holistic view of all the sports clubs led me to my manifesto points. And the main thing, which was clearly visible, is just about upping passion and participation and getting more pride in Team Newcastle. So that's my main thing.
Thank you. And Jack?
At the end of second year, I decided I was going to run for AU officer. So that meant I had to sort of step out of my comfort zone, no pun intended, obviously, and consult the different clubs, text them, ask them, do they fancy a coffee? I think COVID's harmed us all. We don't want to do things online. We don't want video calls anymore. We want in-person chats with people who we know matter. So I contacted club pages. I contacted presidents. I got friends to pass me president's phone number who I did accidentally drop call on a night out, thinking it was my mum. And I had a coffee with them. I had a coffee with, I think, over 10 different clubs, all about the issues they've faced, any ideas they wanted to put to the table. My manifesto isn't crafted by me. It's crafted by the clubs of Newcastle University. It's crafted by what their issues are and the issues they've faced and how we can combat it together rather than just an individual. Obviously, I've chatted to my team, the wheelchair basketball squad, but they've only helped start the journey. All the other different manifesto points are all from separate clubs. I look at the Make Lifting Make Sense campaign, one of the primary flagship goals of my own campaign, and I find out that powerlifting and weightlifting already do educational talks about how their members can best increase. And I thought, wow, what a genius idea. So I brought it forwards. I thought, how can we help support it, and how can we make it open wide to Newcastle University? Hence why that's phase 2 of my Make Lifting Make Sense campaign. But that's not it. Every single one of my manifesto is from a different club, helped put together and pushed forwards as a university rather than an individual.
Great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add? No? Great, so moving on. Question 4, how will your manifesto make life easier for students and committee? Jack.
One of the biggest issues is when you start a new club is that initial offset of payment. If you come to university, you don't know what to expect. But you know, if you want to join a club, you're going to have to pay a membership fee, along with the sports money, to join the university complex. The recruitment videos that I've already mentioned will allow you to alleviate some of that pressure because you'll know what to expect. But it also help ease up on trials. I was contacted today by one of the clubs that use the sports centre that told me that the recruitment videos that I've proposed will help alleviate the pressure they have on trials because people will be either directed to IM sports, allowing the more recreational side of things to be pulled in, but also allow them to go to the trials if they think that's what they want. The recruitment videos will just make life completely easier. That and the boxing team told me that they had issues with the booking system. Headcounts aren't affected. That's what's occurring currently in the sports hall. It'll alleviate any pressures that students have on fines or potential late fees that are currently in place. So that's how I will combat that's how I will make life easier for club committee, the recruitment videos and the booking sensors.
Great, thank you. And Alex?
I think one of the main things I want to put into practice if I do get AU officer is fostering more transparency with the AU's decision-making processes. So it's become increasingly clear that a lot of clubs and a lot of committee members within a variety of sports clubs and societies aren't too sure on how to fully access and exploit the resources, the funding, and the equipment that the university have put in place. I feel like I've been able to kind of understand that myself from my club's perspective and with my own position. But I think there needs to be a little bit more of a conversation between the different clubs, perhaps setting up a community for committee members within different clubs, executive committee members and within different roles, and increased training needs to be given to them so they know fully how to promote their club, how to get the most out of the funding and the grants that the university have in place, and how to communicate that better together, because it's not clubs competing against each other, it's clubs working together to make Team Newcastle and make the sporting community even bigger and more positive and more inclusive for everyone. So it's just fostering that transparency across the board.
Great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I'd just like to ask, you mentioned about having the community within committees. That was trialled last year with Hannah Danks with regards to Spond. How do you propose that's going to be different in the way you propose it?
So we could either do it like a drop-in session kind of thing, or first start with feedback mechanisms, asking what clubs are interested, because I understand you can't really pressure people to get involved if they don't really want to do it. But if you create like a drop-in session where different club committee members can come in to something like this, something maybe similar to like student council, so people can bring their views forward and become like a voice for their club members. So it doesn't need to be like a monthly or a weekly or like a strict kind of thing. It's more the platform is there if you so want to take it. Because there seems like there is a little bit of confusion and miscommunication with different clubs and committee members. So just maybe giving them that platform would just help ease that stress for them. The second point of my campaign as well was talking about improving the mental health systems we've got in place here at the university. And, you know, the pressure of being a sports athlete at university is quite a big thing, and easing and balancing the stress of your studies and your sporting commitments isn't talked about enough. So even having that community so that all these different sports clubs and committee members can like talk through that stress together and kind of work through the issues together. It could be trialed, it could be voluntary, it doesn't have to be compulsory, but just making sure they have that platform. It's just something that could be tested.
Great, thank you very much. So moving on. What are your plans for combating misogyny and sexual violence in sport, Alex?
So that was one of the main things I spoke about on my manifesto as well, with point number 1 of shaping sporting culture at Newcastle University. And I think we can all do more to help tackle this locker room culture, which unfortunately is present here at Newcastle and is present at pretty much most universities within the UK. So one thing I proposed to the AU Executive Committee a couple of months ago was this idea of consent workshops. So that's something that Nottingham University actually put in place 2 years ago. My sister helped work with a charity called Rugby Minds to put it in place. And it was essentially the male and women's union teams initially came together. They sat down and they spoke with their members in workshops. They're essentially just opening up that conversation around consent and sexual violence and misogyny within sport. And giving the platform for both the male and female counterparts to just sit down together. There's not an attack on anyone. It's just getting everyone's views, feelings, and like helping everyone understand. It worked really, really well. So the fact that that's already been successful at one university, there's such a gap here at Newcastle that could be started here, and potentially working with other universities to get it started across the board and beyond university life. Like, it should definitely be prioritised. But the first thing we've got to do is just open up that conversation. And right now it just feels like it is just a little bit of a taboo. So I suggested getting a subcommittee together, getting representatives from some sports clubs, and then working forward from there to tackle some workshops. It's quite a long process. You know, there's going to be trial and error with it, but getting everyone's views and perspectives into order, and then going from there, essentially.
Great, thank you. And Jack?
I think before I answer this question, I have to preface it that I'm coming from a position of privilege as a cis man. I personally have never experienced misogyny, but I acknowledge that it happens. That means that I would consult, first off, the people who have suffered from this awful experience, and then I would contact the clubs that are primarily, the clubs and societies that are handling this. You look at Sexpression and other societies such as that, which I know this is one of their key points. It's something that isn't a one-person job. It's something that needs to be tackled in university, if not nationwide. I know that it's a very difficult thing to target, and I agree Alex's consent workshops are something that's vital in the coming future. And I hope, you know, it will come about regardless of the election campaign. But I think we all always need to focus on what we can do, and everyone needs to look at how we can improve ourselves. I think one of the things in my own manifesto that specifically targets this is the educational workshops that are in phase 2 of my Make Lifting Make Sense campaign. They will be targeted specifically, not just at combating misogyny and sexual violence, but also empowering women and allowing them to use this and use it as own, not fuel, because that's the wrong word, using it to further their own passion in the sport so they can further their own future and progress further.
Thank you very much. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, really quickly. Just speaking as a female, which is in a sport and in a sport that is very overlooked and sometimes undermined within society and within university in general, I think I've kind of got that personal experience that I can put into place. I already have that passion, and I've experienced some horrible things within university. So putting my own perspective on it and my own voice into it, I think can help push that forward more. And like I said, there's a community of us out there that just, we need to have that platform put in place, and I think potentially I could be able to do that.
That's great. Yeah, no, go ahead.
I also think the It Happens Here report that was published last year by President Maddy is a vital tool in targeting misogyny and sexual violence in sport. It's something that I think should be a compulsory read for all presidents and exec committees of sports communities. It's a massive, impactful tool that was researched by the university and provided some really amazing insights into misogyny and sexual violence. Over 60% of people don't report their claims. Can we, in sport, help reduce that number so people feel more comfortable coming forwards, especially if it's within pairing teams such as male and women's sport? Is there a way that we, as an AU officer, can work forwards as dictated in the It Happens Here report?
Great, thank you. So we have a question for you now, Jack. It says, a lot of your manifesto is focused on gym-based training. I'm from the canoe club, where we are not provided strength and conditioning, and most of our training occurs on the water. How will you be able to support clubs who need access to alternative facilities beyond the gym and sports halls?
I think a lot of my manifesto is based around the gym, but it's not all. The gym is a vital aspect in progressing in any sport going. Every sport can benefit from S&C, regardless of whether they're on the performance pathway or not. That's why this phase 2 of my manifesto is all about the educational side of the gym, and the educational side, not just of the gym, but also of nutrition and fitness in general. Every sport has some form of endurance. Whether Canoe Club, for example, will continue having to complete their course, they're going to be knackered at the end of it. The educational side of my Make Lifting Make Sense campaign can help provide that endurance and allow them to give more of their effort for a longer sense of time. Yes, the alternative facilities are hard to sort because we as Newcastle University don't necessarily own them. But we can still help further that and have discussions with the owners and discuss if more, I don't know, is it track time or the course times can be had? Is there a way we can help facilitate that or work with it? I know the Wildcats, the ice hockey, have to train at 12 o'clock at night and have their matches on the lowest possible times. I understand that. Is there something that we can do? This is why I want the discussion. I want the chat of how can an AU officer facilitate their lives to make it easier. It's not all gym-based, but it is educational-based.
It's great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add, Alex? Great. So we've got another question now for you, Jack. How are gym videos relevant to assisting and promoting sports clubs?
When you go to the gym, you don't know what you're doing. The first time I stepped foot in the gym, I was blown away. I saw dumbbells, I saw weights, I saw everything. I didn't need to know. It was bizarre. And yet, I found myself spending hours and hours on TikTok, just scrolling down, and I saw a movement that looked quite cool. It was a pull-up. And I saw that, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to try that the next time I go to the gym. And I went to the gym, and I realized, no, I don't have the muscle strength for it. I can't get up to the machine. I can't pull myself. I need to figure a way. So I then looked at other videos on how to progress and work up to a pull-up. And eventually I got there. I got there, and I managed that first pull-up because I had the training from the videos that allowed me to move forwards and get onto that pull-up position. Without those videos, I wouldn't know what I'm doing. In my manifesto, I suggest they're student uploaded, so we know that they're students at Newcastle who know what they're doing. We've all seen them in the gym. They're friendly faces. They're not just some random guy on TikTok that could be quoting anything that we don't really know about as complete beginners to experienced gym goers. The gym videos are there to help us know what to do at the gym, know how to handle it, and also reduce that gym anxiety that everyone feels when they go into a gym.
That's great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add, Alex?
I think what you said about starting at the gym is such a big thing. I think there is such a gap in the market there. I'm not that much of a gym fanatic. Yeah, I kind of actually have to go because of my S&C sessions for rugby, but I probably wouldn't go without that set in place. I think that's a great movement to get going, but I think I'm personally slightly confused and maybe slightly unclear on your direction with how that could promote sports clubs or individuals that potentially have no interest in going to the gym. Yes, they use a sports centre, but aren't too fussed about or lifting or getting into that kind of thing.
A lot of clubs at the moment are on the quite a few clubs are on the performance pathway. This means they get S&C twice a week, once a week, depends on the club. For the clubs that don't, and the people that want to go to the gym but don't start, they don't have any stepping stone. There's so much of a want to go and start at the gym, but there's no knowledge. There's no basis or grounding that people have that they can further. That's why the videos are so important, because it allows the people, it removes the barrier of lack of knowledge to progress and take a stepping stone onto that platform, whereas otherwise they wouldn't. And for those that don't want to go to the gym, if you want to progress in the sport, as most people do in books, one of the best ways, as quoted by so many papers, is by starting at the gym. But where? Where do we start without this kind of stepping stone? Where do we progress? That's why the Make Lifting Make Sense campaign is so vital. It's so important for Newcastle University students here.
If you've got a couple of students, for example, that come up to you, again, they could be part of a sports club, no interest in going to the gym, but are coming to you with more on how they can help get more visibility with their club. What would be your direction there? Because at the moment, it seems like your priority is with gym videos and with lifting, but it seems like there's more pressing issues in place within the university, and there's more gaps in people's knowledge in terms of AU decision-making processes, how to exploit the resources that the university have, and then also how to increase their participation, visibility, and passion within their clubs. I do think that the gym initiative is such a great idea, but I think there potentially are more pressing issues within the AU that need to be pushed. What would be your direction with that?
As I was saying on my Instagram, Jack for AU 2024 earlier today, it's all about utilising what we have and how we can go. The AU decision-making, a lot of it goes on, and a lot of it doesn't see results that clubs can feel and notice. So I would argue, why do we need to know what those decisions are if they don't have an impactful club level? Yes, they occur, but I also mentioned in my Instagram that I want to bring back the weekly updates. They are vital. Last year, we got one every single week, an update by Hannah. You know, she sent it out, we knew what was going on. I want to bring them back, along with a monthly term reel, to bring back what we've done and how we can progress it. Smaller clubs are vital. We look at wheelchair basketball, we're one of the smallest at university. Yet the visibility we get is slowly increasing, but it can always do better. You look at the big clubs, they've got too much, some would argue, because the smaller clubs don't. Thank you.
If I could interject, we'll finish the rest of the question. We'll come to more debate later on. We've got a question for you now, Alex. What are you going to do to help support disabled students accessing sport at the university?
That's a very good question. I think that's a hard one for me to comment on as well. But the main thing is giving those students, those individuals, the same opportunities as the students. I know that's really tough, especially when there's so many accessibility issues within the university, which I do recognise and I have been made aware of from quite a few individuals, especially after reading your campaign as well. Like I know it is such a pressing issue, and it's hard for me to comment on. So I think I would make sure I speak to those individuals and give them the platform for me to then put it into practice, and then go from there, essentially. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Jack?
I would like to see what accessibility issues has you been made aware of?
I know, for one, that the elevator at the SU, I know it constantly breaks. I've heard that that's quite a big issue quite a lot of the time. And then also accessibility, for example, even getting, if you'd want to come and watch an event at Cochrane Park, I know it's not essentially easy to manoeuvre around there.
Okay.
Am I wrong? Sorry, am I wrong
No,
in saying that it's just...
I have been quite a few times to Cochrane Park, and it can be improved, but I think there are more pressing issues with regards to disabled students accessing sport at university than an access issue that is a bit of a non-issue. I know, disabled sport's been massive at Newcastle Uni for myself, and being able to get to Cochrane Park has never been an issue. There's a bus I can push, and then once I'm there, I can get round. And the wheelchair users that I have spoken to, which is most wheelchair users on campus, don't find much of an issue with that terms of access. The issue they have with access is finding different avenues to explore the sports they're interested in. Yeah. Wheelchair basketball was set up to combat that exact issue. Athletics has a wheelchair racing chair that is a constant use of myself, and there's other players who want to try in. I think the best way to look at helping support disabled students would be by opening to have different disabled sports days. Wheelchair basketball is the largest sport currently present in the Paralympics. Why can we not open that to wheelchair tennis? Why can we not bring in different practitioners? Disabled Sports Need isn't just about access. It's about opening it and allowing every student, both disabled and able-bodied, to access a sport that they enjoy. It's not about finding a location. It's about playing the sport they enjoy.
I completely agree, and obviously I've got so much to learn on this kind of issue, and I'm so welcome to speak to more individuals about that kind of thing. I think we all have more to learn at the university as well. It's not visible enough and it's not spoken about enough, so definitely everything you said is very valid.
Great, we'll move on. Our next question is just what sets you apart from your competition, if you'd like to start, Alex?
Well, I've been at Newcastle University here for 4 years now, and I've got plenty experience and I've had plenty exposure within the sporting culture and the sporting life here at the uni. So I joined during COVID year, as I mentioned previously, and that was so strange. Joining a club when I haven't met half of them, and we were just doing random Zoom videos, and there was only 5 of us on a call. It was so awkward, but I persisted with it because I wanted to make new friends. I was locked in an accommodation and I couldn't socialize with anyone except people in my flat. And having that avenue to meet older students, because everyone I was just mixing with were first years, was absolutely fantastic. And then going into second year, I put myself forward for social secretary, which was a whole experience in itself, doing that for a whole year by myself, managing 60 girls around the streets of Newcastle, but I absolutely loved it. I made some of the best friends ever, and I made some of the most fantastic memories. And then moving forward now into my 4th year now at university, I've gone into a leadership position on executive committee of president, and it's been a whirlwind to say the least. I've experienced a lot especially in the last couple of months, but everything has been so valuable, and it's been such a learning experience not only for me, for my members. And for the first time ever, we've progressed to having 3 teams, the first 2 competing competitively in bucks, and the third one we've opened it up to around, I think we've got 120 members now, which is absolutely fantastic. So for me, I've seen that progression not only through the university but from my own personal experience. As you can probably tell from the way I speak about it, I am very, very passionate, not only about Newcastle Uni, but just about sport in general. It's generally taken up 99% of my life. I feel like I do a degree in rugby rather than a degree in zoology, but I wouldn't have it any other way. It's essentially shaped my whole life here at Newcastle, and I couldn't have asked for a better way to do it.
That's great, thank you. And Jack?
I think coming to university and playing in a sport, doing a sport initially that no one else did, and as an adaptive athlete, doing wheelchair racing for a year, is a very niche thing, because you feel as if you're on your own. You have your athletics mates. They don't fully understand. We do the same sport. But then I don't think many other players can say at Newcastle University that they've founded their own club. They didn't go to the AU officer at the time, Fergus, and he said, "Jack, we'll see what we can do." This was in my 2nd week of university. Fergus said that, and by April, we had wheelchairs and we had a squad. We now have one of the largest squads in the country, numbering 2 bucks teams, which is only rivaled by Loughborough. I would argue I've been president of wheelchair basketball for both of my 2 years, my 2nd and 3rd year, and the 1st year I was in athletics. Still am. And I would argue that no one else can say that they have had such an impact that they've grown wheelchair basketball, one of the flagship Paralympic sport to move forwards and pass it and make it grow so much. The other thing is, I've spoken to so many people, not just those at the top level in presidents and exec committees, but just others as friends. The common player, the common sporting person, the common gym goer who isn't even part of the club. I've spoken to them and I've had discussions before I even knew I was running for AU. And it said, these are what I'm having. These are the issues I'm facing. These discussions aren't being had by many others in the depth that I've had. 3 hours was one of the conversations, whilst I was meant to be having a gym session, but luckily he was working out his legs. But it was good fun, and it made my knowledge base and my passion for improving sports so much more than I was expecting. I do wheelchair basketball now. I do athletics. I do any opportunity I can go to the gym. It's a passion. It's not just for fun anymore.
That's great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add? Or?
Really quickly, sorry, I know I feel like
No, go ahead.
keep talking. But I think doing this kind of role would help set me up better in the future. I spend a lot of my free time giving sport, going to conferences and learning more about the whole sporting community. The other day I was in Leeds and I went to a Women in Sport event, and that went on 6 hours, and I met individuals from different universities and beyond, and we opened up the conversation about so many issues within female representation in sport, and it was so inspiring and interesting to hear from all these different women across the country. And pulling on from that, not only from there, I've got connections to some of my friends that go to other universities, and I've got a lot of connections with other sports clubs and individuals across the board. Again, not only in Bucks sporting events, but also in the non-Bucks clubs. And I would love to get into a career in sport in the future, and I think this kind of role and the experiences I can gain from this kind of thing would be invaluable. And I'm very, very genuine on that, and I think I'll put my heart and soul into this role if I do get it.
That's great, thank you. So our last question before we get into the debate will just be, how will you know you've completed the goals you've set in your manifesto, Jack?
I think my manifesto is very case in point. I've told you what I want. I've told you what we want. And it's a thing that we can say very adamantly when my goals have been achieved. If we get card scanners in the rooms to alleviate that stress from having a late fee, I will have met my goal. If we get an online gym library, I will have met mine. If we get educational videos to allow those who want to participate in further knowledge basis training, we'll have done that. And the recruitment videos, that speaks for itself. Come Freshers Fair, we'll see my manifesto is completed. It's very easy. You know what I'm getting with my manifesto. You can see. You don't have to read my Instagram. You don't have to understand it. I've told you what we expect. I've told you how we're going to do it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Alex?
I think it will become clear throughout the year, throughout when all my manifesto points are being ticked off. But I think it's just starting from fresh at the beginning when you sit down with your AU Executive Committee, you sit down with the sporting team here, and kind of bridging that gap a little bit between the AU and the sporting community here at the university, and just making it clear what my manifesto points are. So reshaping sporting culture within the university, that comes from lots of different avenues, and I think it's hard to tick every single one off board, and I'm not going to promise everything to everyone and not get them all done. But I think it's setting up those consent workshops, creating a more sense of Newcastle University pride for those flagship events that I spoke about, increasing visibility for different clubs. My second point is helping amplify mental health mechanisms within the university, and again that comes from speaking with students, creating athlete check-ins, creating that AU club community that I spoke about, and then the final thing is fostering that cross-club connections and collaborations. And I think it will become clear throughout the year, if I do get this role, that these things will be achieved. It won't only just be outlined, but it will be very transparent from the whole sporting community coming together. It's not a one-person role at the end of the day. It's all the sports clubs, all the individuals, the AU, and the sports community getting involved to tick them off the list. But I think it's just having that consistent consistent theme across the year and making sure things are being done.
That's great. Thank you very much. Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, okay.
Right. So we can move into our debate section now. Our first question will be, what do you think are the biggest barriers to those taking part in sports at Newcastle, and how do you plan on addressing these, Alex?
I think I've spoken about some of this before throughout just speaking here, but some of the biggest barriers are being confused over the AU resources we've got set in place, so whether that be through funding, through visibility, through equipment, and making that abundantly clear to students how they can exploit those resources and giving them a platform to be able to speak up and to do so. I think creating avenues such as check-in sessions, such as having a potentially monthly AU, I want to say kind of like a student council kind of environment. So getting that buy-in from everyone is the best way forward, because I don't want to speak for individuals. I don't want to put words in people's mouths without them bringing them forward. So yeah.
That's great. Thank you. Jack?
I would think that awareness is one of the largest barriers in addressing sport at the moment. Awareness of not just what club to join, not just what to do at the club, not just even how to do it at a club, but what's expected, what's needed, and what you need to do for your club. The club is a big part of everyone's lives. You buy a membership, and suddenly you've got a brand new family. It's something that you have to be totally aware of, that you need to give your commitments to your family. It's a really daunting aspect of it. You look at my recruitment videos, all about reducing the stress and the anxiety of putting in these commitments with this monetary value. That's what the recruitment video's primary reason is. It's about addressing the issues that's just been stated. The biggest barrier in knowing how a club works, what even a club is. Some clubs, you look at a name and you think, what's that? Wheelchair basketball, for example. People don't know you don't have to be disabled to play the sport. That's one of the barriers that stops people joining ours. And if there's ones that exist for us, there's bound to be others for smaller clubs, but also large ones as well. What team to play for? That's another massive big thing. If you're brand new to the sport, you're not expected to play for the first team. But if you see on Instagram, on NCL Sport, seeing, oh yeah, basketball have won 100-0, and you're a new person trying to start this sport, you're going to be terrified. You can't just rock up to a session. You can't just rock up to trials having just wanting to experience this sport. I think it's vital that we address the fear and the anxiety that is present when you join a new sport and a new club. It's massive. The recruitment videos will resolve that. Not entirely. I still acknowledge that there will be fear, because it's a new group of people. It's a new family. But it's the one that's important. And I think that's why it's vital that we address the awareness and the accessibility of sport in that aspect.
Great, thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying. And I think one of the biggest barriers we've also got set in place at the moment is that we've only got a 2-week free pass for students to try out sports clubs. So I know for the gym, I think it's around 6 weeks, but having extension on that 2 weeks so students can kind of dip their toes into different sports, kind of seeing what kind of enthusiasm or passion they have. 'Cause it's hard to go along to like one training session and think, oh yeah, those girls were nice, or those individuals were nice, and did I really enjoy that sport? Maybe I'll try this one the next time. I think having 2 weeks is quite a limited amount of time to be able to know exactly what you want to get into. So making that easier for individuals and for not only first years as well, because I know this year we've had a lot of older students join who never even knew about our club from day one, and they've been at university for 4 or 5 years. So I think increasing that awareness is such a big thing, but giving students more of an opportunity and more time to make their decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack?
I think when I started out in this AU campaign, I spoke to the guy who helped set up our wheelchair basketball team, the first AU officer when I came here, Fergus. And one of his speaking points was about making Spotlight Mondays, I think is what he called it, where anybody could go to a club and join and try it, much like you're saying, Alex. And I completely agree. It's a perfect way to start. Extending that 2-week period, or perhaps having 1 day a month where clubs are free, scanning at the gym, you can get through those barriers, is a really effective way of increasing that awareness and allowing people to work for it.
I was on the committee with Fergus that year when he set
He
it up.
mentioned he said you,
Yeah, and it actually was so successful. So keeping that continuity going, I think, throughout each years and throughout each AU run would make it more successful because it was so good, and then it kind of just stopped. That momentum was kind of lost. So definitely keeping that going would be great. And potentially working alongside the maybe give it a go community we've got at the university as well would be such a big thing, and pushing that for clubs so they know they can do that for refreshers as well. I know this year we've gained, I think, 50 more members just from refreshers alone. So there's definitely gaps, and there's way more that could be done for it.
I do think the issue with you just saying with the Give It a Go, wheelchair basketball tried to have multiple Give It a Go sessions at the start of the year. And ultimately we were not allowed to because of the blockade of the 2 weeks free period. So I think allowing to move away from the Give It a Go in that first 2 weeks and changing that and not using that until we have further into the first semester or even the second semester with refreshers would be a bit more of an effective strategy than utilising the Give It a Go initially, rather using the Give It a Go further into the semester, because then we can ham up further excitement, especially if there's a tournament coming up. I think that would be when we use Give It a Go rather than at the start to increase the awareness from there.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea as well. So it's not just pushed like when you first join uni, it's kind of like even a couple of weeks in, and you know, when you first join there's a lot going on, maybe a month or two in, you then are interested in a club. So yeah, definitely, that's a really good idea.
Any final thoughts either of you would like to add? Or?
No.
Great, we can move on to our last debate question then. Often members of smaller sports clubs feel as though the bigger clubs get more attention from both the university and the union. How will you make sure marginal clubs are treated fairly if you are elected as AU officer? Jack, if you'd like to start.
I come from a position of one of the smallest clubs at Newcastle University. We number 17 players at the last count. It means we're ratified, and it means we're allowed to play the sport at Bucks. Marginal clubs are vital to Newcastle University. I think we should increase exposure on all the social media platforms. Currently, as I've in my discussions with the different relevant officers from different clubs, it's very aware that the big clubs get the publicity. You see a lot of football, basketball, rugby, all go on the Instagram, especially when they do well in Bucks, which obviously is deserved. But what about the clubs that are small that also do well in Bucks? You look at clubs such as Korfball that are currently having a cracking season in Bucks. You look at netball that randomly get a pop-up on NCL and then you don't see them for another couple of weeks or a couple of months. The Instagram's a vital place and a vital avenue where you can see how we do on sport, not just when we do big ones, not when we do big wins, but when there's a close game, there should be publicized media when it's so close, when there's 1 point in it, when people are scratching their teeth. At the moment, that's not what happens. Unless it's an absolute decimation, not much gets shouted out, unless you follow the Instagram page. I also think there should be a weekly, monthly update, maybe 2 weekly, about the wins of Newcastle University and the students that we've got. The performance pathway currently. They used to be on the second floor of Sports Hall 2, near Sports Hall 2. There used to be a full wall of all the performance pathway athletes. These athletes have deserved to be in this position. You've got all the ones from fencing, from fencing all the way up to rugby and football, that deserve to be on this performance pathway, but the recognition they receive is very minimal. We need to make more of awareness. Students sometimes have to skip lectures to go to competitions abroad, over in Europe, over in America. This isn't publicised by the university. Why can we not have spotlights? Let them vlog. Let us see a day in their life at a European championship. Look at the weightlifting and powerlifting team. They have European championships, and we haven't heard anything of it. Why not? Why shouldn't we? This is something that's vital. We need to give the student athletes the recognition they deserve. And that's how I propose.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Alex?
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you're saying. I think one initiative I would also put in place is having like a revamp of the AU social media, and potentially like those monthly flagship events I was talking about, promoting different sports clubs. I think it could be essentially like a monthly thing. If we know that water polo have got an event, we make it huge, we increase the spectatorship, we get everyone involved, we wham it on everyone's Instagrams, not just the NCL sport one, on rugby, on wheelchair basketball, on swimming, on like volleyball, get it everywhere, get that kind of sense of community, which I feel like we're kind of lacking at the moment. We're not going against each other, we're trying to lift each other up as a community all together. And I think, like you said, there needs to be more visibility for those smaller clubs which don't have that platform at the moment, which potentially don't have those members in the committee that could provide that for them. So potentially doing like Instagram takeovers or day in the life or TikTok reels or commenting reels. I know Kimiko has gone to a few events recently, has been commentating the sports even though she's known nothing about it, and it's been hilarious to watch, and that's been great. Collaborating with NUTV, getting them down to some games or some competitions, box and non-box. Just making sure that sport is just visible across the board. There shouldn't be a sport prioritized because of their size, because of their performance, because of their status within the university. It needs to be equalized, and that equalization definitely comes from the social media representation. Potentially getting a newsletter out and a monthly recap. They're fantastic ideas, but they need to be put in place, and I think they need to be put in place from day one. You need that collaboration across the board from these sports clubs, and you need that buy-in to get that going.
Anything you'd like to add?
Something else I think is currently lacking is the advertisement on intramural sports. It plays such a vital role in those players that don't want to do books, but still want to play a sport. I recently went to go watch an intramural netball game. It was brilliant. I've never watched netball in my life until I went to go watch this, and it was amazing to watch. It was competitive. It was everything that was needed. There's no advertisement for this. There's no Instagram takeover. There's no nothing. It's just Saturday, we went to go pick up some chairs, and there was this match going on. The next weekend, I went to go watch it. It was brilliant. What I'd love to see is league tables for the different societies, the different clubs that are in the IM league. We don't know anything about them at the moment. Why? A league table, set it up on Playways. It's easily doable, it's easily advertisable, and it's easily marketable. It's brilliant. It makes life so much nicer for the players, and it makes it more enjoyable for us as Newcastle students to make us feel as one in a community rather than just an individual who plays a sport on a weekend.
Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying again, and I think that representation, that visualization that we talk about, it can't only just come from online. We need to see it at the SU, we need to see it in university buildings, and it needs to be clear, I think, from the day dot when you join university. During Freshers Week, Freshers have got so many talks and events that get going on, and I know that fair is fantastic, but a lot of students are quite shy and they're quite reluctant to go up to individuals, especially if they're coming across quite intimidating, with stood all together, chit-chatting. You need to have those avenues where students can listen and know what is out there, because some people won't ask for that help. You need to kind of give it to them. So that representation needs to be across the board, online, spoken about potentially before lectures as well, like just getting it out there, like wherever we can, really, and getting that sense of community going.
Anything else you'd like to add, Jack?
It sounds in a way, as you were just describing it, Alex, as if there needs to be sort of videos for recruitment in a way, which, funnily enough, I don't know, I've mentioned it a few times, but it does sound as if you were just saying that there needs to be more social media videos about these sports and almost recruiting them to the clubs.
Definitely. A revamp of social media is something I've spoken about as well in my manifesto, and I think getting that forward from all sports clubs is a huge thing. I think, like you said, you can stand at a stall at a Freshers' Fair and speak to people, but if they don't know the follow-through with that. And also, like you said, getting those weekly emails out and those weekly reminders, reminding individuals that they have those kind of opportunities for them is a fantastic way of getting them recruited into a club. And having that extension, like I said, of that trial week is a way for individuals to know and try those different avenues out. So definitely.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts either of you would like to add? Or? No? Go ahead.
Really quickly, I really enjoyed tonight and listening to your points, and I think your ideas are fantastic, and I wish you the best of luck.
Likewise. Likewise.
Do we have time for any audience questions? 10 minutes. Does anyone in the audience want to ask a question? Yeah, of course.
Your points, sorry, this is for Jack. Your points are mainly about media and videos and things, and you're saying that the way that you'll see that your manifesto is ticked off is through having done them. What about the culture aspect and the less physical parts of being in sport. And then also, once those things are ticked off, say you tick them all off by Christmas, what's next? Do you just step back, and what's next in terms of your legacy?
I think at face value, the points that you've raised are very much doable things. But the context behind why my manifesto points are put forward is a lot more relevant. The videos that I proposed in the Make Lifting Make Sense campaign isn't just about the videos. What it is about is reducing the gym anxiety that players feel. The emotions that they feel when stepping into the gym is what the manifesto is about. It's not about, yes, the videos are vital in helping the gym, but they're also helping the mental health aspect of things and the well-being surrounding that. The recruitment videos, once again, alleviating the panic and the stress that people can cause. Yes, these things are doable and can be ticked off, but the culture and the mental health aspect is such a vital thing that it needs to be mentioned. It keeps commonly being brought up because it's an issue, and we can face that. The ways I've mentioned are easy ways we can combat it and ways we can work forwards with it. But I'm sure there's loads more suggestions. The context to the manifesto points are a lot more than just a tick box. They're reasons, they're things people have come forward with and methods to fix the mental health, to help aid the mental health behind players and relieve that stress and panic. Hope that answers your question.
Would you like to add anything, Alex?
I think it's great, again, like you keep speaking about the gym goers and the gym fanatics, and like you said, using the sports, using your card, like you said, that's a great way of exploiting that. But I do agree with what Abby was saying, that culture is such a big thing. I think, yes, getting that participation in the gym and getting those videos and those resources out is great, but I think there's more pressing issues out there and more of getting that sense of Team Newcastle community across the board, not just from the gym, but on the pitch, in the swimming pool, on the court. I think there's other avenues that can be explored through that way, but the gym is definitely...
I completely agree.
Yeah.
That's why it's not just a one-phase plan. It's not just we'll do videos and call it.
Yeah.
The second phase of the Make Lifting Make Sense campaign is all about the educational side of the gym, and not just the gym, but of sport in general. We look at the different educational talks that I proposed, which is how gender differences in training can make a massive difference in how we train. We talk about how to train for a specific method. Are you training for endurance? We can get a speaker in, one of the S&C coaches perhaps. Someone, so it's not just about going to the gym, it's about everything that surrounds it. We'll get mental health practitioners in. I know there was a workshop recently that was a volunteer workshop led by DManSOC. Barely anyone attended. It wasn't something that was well accepted. It's something that we can work on and something that we can move forwards. These educational talks are not just about how to get huge, how to get massive gains. They aren't there. That's not the purpose of them. The purpose there is for how do we train? Why do we train? And what can we do to improve it? Nutrition's a massive aspect in this. I know personally I've had issues with nutrition in the past. I've had issues with my mental health regarding that. I had someone to talk to. It really helped me. I can understand these talks will just benefit and further that progression. So yes, it will help the gym goers, but it will also help the sport goers as well, the ones that don't touch in front of the gym. It'll just educate everyone in everything surrounding sport.
I think perhaps an altercation that could be made is, instead of making them educational videos, we could kind of do it like in-person talks, more of events and workshops.
That's phase 2 of the plan.
Yeah, rather than essentially kind of lecturing for an individual and essentially kind of not getting that buy-in, kind of opening it up, making it more of a conversation.
Yeah. Glad you agree with me, Alex.
I do.
All right, do you have any other questions from the audience? Yeah, right here.
Jack, it's another question for yourself. It's just about the logistics of your gym videos for education. I'm sure you know yourself, like, there are a lot of exercises that you can do in the gym, and they range, like, vastly. How do you suppose, like, in terms of, like, labour of, like, recording yourself or someone else doing these exercises and talking people through it, like, that's quite time-consuming. I don't know, how do you propose to kind of combat that?
So a lot of the wheelchair basketball squad have wanted to go to the gym. I've gone to the gym, I've spent time with them, and I've helped them. I've taught them the exercise. Whilst doing that, I had to nip off to the loo. It happens. Everyone does it. But whilst doing that, another person who I've never met in my life came up and started teaching one of my players how to do an exercise. What I propose is placing a tripod and a camera behind the desk at the gym. And if students like this person that came and helped my player want to film themselves, because the want is obviously there. At Newcastle, we want to help our fellow students. We want to build that community. We ask for the tripod, we ask for the camera, and we set it up. And we can film ourselves if we want to. It's completely voluntary, and then it'll get uploaded to a library, which will then get checked by the AU officer, hopefully myself, if elected, and then uploaded where people can then access it. Hope that answers your question. Thank you.
I was going to say, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I'm good.
Anyone else? Yeah?
This is kind of a question for both of you. So, I mean, I've been a woman in sport at Newcastle now for 5 years, and I'm part of the women's rugby union, not rugby union. There is that distinction between male and female, so I want to know how you're going to support women in sport going forwards and encouraging that joining of it. Yes, sorry.
Alex, would you like to start?
I think it's interesting actually speaking to some individuals from other universities across the UK, and a lot of them actually have, they've got a joint committee between their two gendered teams, and that committee essentially working together for the same exact goal and getting that representation for both of them, getting the resources for both of them so there isn't a gap in the market. I know that we have experience with women's rugby, perhaps less of the opportunities that our male counterparts have. I think that's clear and that's fair for me to say. And I think bridging that gap, making that easier for students, it's a hard thing to do to go to the male, I don't want to call them opposition, but a male counterpart and say, shall we do this initiative? I think making it easier and kind of making it more inclusive between both of them so they're on one committee, they're one together. We have our director of rugby, which again is fair for us both, but making that committee in place, kind of putting us on par would be a great tool. And like I said, creating that community for those club committees across the board for different sports, giving them all the opportunity to sit in a room together, not just Instagram DM each other, not two individuals go off and speak, everyone in one room speaking together, going for the exact same goal, sharing their opinions, their differences. It may get a bit heated. People may challenge each other, but I think that's fantastic. I think we don't at the moment have an avenue set in place to speak about those kind of things, and I think they need to be spoken about and they need to be visualized, and women's representation definitely, absolutely needs to be increased.
Yeah.
Jack?
I think Alex has hit the nail on the head completely. I'm over the 6 weeks, I feel like I'm still in high school. Over the summer holidays, I was in a group chat with the women's basketball president and the male's basketball president. And we had a discussion, even though we play wheelchair basketball, it's on the same court, it's still the same sport. And we had a discussion about how we can best combat the issues that we face together. I think there are so many shared issues that we face that it's stupid not to have that combined committee, as Alex suggested. But I also think the educational side of this is such an important aspect as well, of learning the differences and being educated on the differences in how we train and why we train and how we shoot, or if there's a difference in technique. I play a mixed sport. We have every gender on the same team. It's perfect. It works wonders until one person can't shoot in a specific way, the way I've been taught. So then I got someone in and we spoke together about how to shoot from a different position and a different technique. And it worked. That person's now shooting outside the key, which is a brilliant, a commendable effort. And that's because I acknowledged my own weakness, much in the same way that I would encourage as a U officer to acknowledge our own weaknesses and work forwards and see how we can progress it.
I think there's a gap in terms of the committee training that we have set in place at the beginning of the year. I know we had some, I kind of want to call them lectures, because I know we were kind of sat down in a room together, and we had some different individuals come in and we were there for a couple hours, and it felt a little bit, it was interesting to say the least, but it wasn't compulsory. There were a lot of sports that actually weren't in the room, and a lot of people actually, I felt like, weren't buying into what we were what we're supposed to be trained on. There was a real lack of knowledge on several things across the board as well. So I think, again, speaking to these members, speaking on what, like the gaps in our knowledge, what we need to improve on, the issues we face, and how we can all be trained together to combat them. Not just someone standing in front of you and telling you what to do, us sat in a room, us sat in different groups together, and just opening up that conversation, being able to work together towards a common goal. We all want to play well in our sport. We all want to score points and get some bucks points up there and make Newcastle a better sporting university. But that can only happen if you get the student voices in on it.
Anything else you'd like to add?
That's all, thank you.
Are we out of time? Can we have one more question? All right.
Thank you very much, everyone,
guys.
for coming.
Yeah, in that case, that concludes. That concludes the AU Officer Spotlight. Thank you all for coming, and to those watching live on the stream. And thank you again to our candidates for telling us more about yourselves and your manifestos. Big thank you to NUTV and NUSU for hosting these sessions. And make sure to vote next week to help shape your campus. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.